In this video, we're going to look at how to knit the Dutch heel. So I've been knitting in the round. I've taken half of my stitches and I've knit a slip stitch heel flap. So now we're going to start the heel turn on our Dutch heel. And I'm going to start that by splitting my stitches into thirds. I've left 8 stitches in the middle and I have 9 on the outside on either side. And then I'm going to knit across 2/3 of these stitches, starting with a slip stitch. So I'll slip this first stitch purlwise and then knit 16 stitches to get all the way through that second third of my stitches. And that should leave me with 9 stitches on the left hand side here, and at this point I'm going to slip, slip, and knit, or SSK, these 2 stitches, and then turn my work. Now going forward, we're going to start each row with a slip stitch. So I'm going to slip this stitch purlwise and purl across that center third of my stitches. So I'm purling 8. I started with a slip stitch. I'm going to purl my 8 center stitches, and that should leave me with 9 stitches left on my left hand needle. At this point, I'm going to purl 2 stitches together and turn my work. So now you'll see there's a gap that's formed on either side of the center stitches. And we're going to knit that next row by slipping the first stitch and then knitting across until 1 stitch before the gap. And at that point we're going to SSK, or slip, slip, knit, to bridge that gap. So slipping the stitch before the gap and the slip stitch after the gap, and then knitting those 2 stitches together. Starting the next row with a slip stitch, we're going to purl back to 1 stitch before the next gap. And then we will purl the last stitch before the gap together with the first stitch after the gap and turn our work. So we'll continue to do that all the way through, and we've skipped a few rows here so I can show you the last couple of decrease rounds here. So this is my last decrease row on the right side. I started by slipping a stitch and now I've knit across all the way to the last 2 stitches, and I'm going to slip, slip, and knit those 2 stitches together and turn my work, and we'll do the last of the wrong side facing rows. So slip 1 stitch purlwise and purl all the way across to the last 2 stitches. And then we'll purl those 2 stitches together. Now if you remember, we started out with 8 stitches in the center. In the end we'll have 10 stitches altogether. There we go. We've got a heel flap, we've got a nice decrease line on either side of this heel turn, and that makes a Dutch heel, which is sometimes called a square heel. In the end, you will slip this first stitch and knit back to halfway through your heel stitches and place your start of round stitch marker right in between those stitches.